Why isn't connecting?
Hello. So that I'm audible, right?
Yeah, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Surya, you there?
Yes, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, so I think now we can start. We have 31 participants.
Okay.
And I think meanwhile I'll complete my introduction and everything. So I think more will be joining by that time.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect. So hello everyone. A very good evening to all of you, and I welcome you to this workshop. And so myself, Surya Sajeevan, and I'm working as a project officer for YRE at Center for Environmental Education. So I would like to start with what is Center for Environmental Education. Is my slide is moving? Yes. So Center for Environmental Education, Ahmedabad, was established as a center for excellence under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change by Government of India, working in the field of environmental education and education for sustainable development. And as a national institute, Center for Environmental Education mandate is to promote environmental awareness nationwide and to see develop innovative program as well as national material and building capacity in the field of education for sustainable development, which is ESD, and it is a committee committed to ensure the environmental education lead to the action for sustainable development. It undertakes many field projects that demonstrate and validate the role of education can play a vital role in sustainable development. With this, we have many programs in CE, and one of those programs is YRE, for which we have gathered today for a wonderful workshop. Right? And before explaining what is YRE, let's understand about the organization who introduced this program. So it was by Foundation for Environmental Education. So it is an international environmental education organization having 100 members in 81 countries across the globe. And it is recognized by UNESCO and UNEP as a world leader within the field of environmental education and education for the sustainable development. And one of the FE's program is YRE. So I'll just give us a short brief about their different programs. So they have like a 2 program which is completely into ecotourism. One is Green Key for sustainable hotels, and one is Blue Flag for sustainable beaches. And 3 programs for school and youth students. I mean, for the youth for it's a part of environmental education. One is Eco School, Learn from the Forest, and the other one is Young Reporters for the Environment. So YRE is a network of national youth engaged in the education for sustainable development goal and a youth engagement for to resolving environmental issues. Basically, it is an environmental journalism program. 42 countries are participating in this program with 5 lakh young reporters for the young reporters across the globe. Talking about YRE India, YRE since 2016, Center for Environmental Education is a national operator for YRE India. Until now, we are associated with more than 500 schools, 50 plus universities and colleges, and more than 5,000 students across India. So under YRE program, we have 3 different categories. And one of the categories is photography, environmental photography, a visual representation of journalism. So for that, we have a workshop for that particular category, workshop for basics of photography. So with this, I welcome Surya, who will be facilitating today's workshop. He's a researcher at YRE, and his majority of work is for the wildlife, reptiles, and everything. And apart from that, he's a wonderful photographer. So, hello, Surya.
Thanks for the introduction. Quick one.
So now it's over to you.
Yeah.
You can
Okay. I'll go.
So now you can share.
I'm audible, no? I'm clear, no?
Yes, you are audible. Now you can share screen and you can begin with the workshop. Thank you.
Is my screen visible? The first slide?
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. Yeah. So as Surya said, I am a researcher in general, but I do also a little of photography. So it all started. I'm not a big professional photographer, but it started like I wanted to photograph the things that I work on. I work on reptiles. So it started with a small time clicking of my study animals, and over time I started clicking photographs also as a hobby, and I still do concentrate on photographs that are very much relevant to what I'm doing. And when I find free time, I go for other stuff, but I still restrict myself to things that I do rather than a very common photography. So yeah, so today I'll give you a very brief idea of what is photography and why do you want photography and what is a photo and how do you handle different instruments that you have in hand. Like we have so many instruments. Earlier it used to be just a camera. Now we have a lot of things. So we'll just give you a brief idea of how does it work, what is the science behind it, very basic idea of all this. And I'll give you like few steps of how to frame your image, how to visualize your image, and so build stories to report and make a story out of your photograph. We'll just go ahead with all that. So to start with, what is photography? If you see here, photography is nothing but just an application of science and art in practice. See, you basically just recording the light, right? Without the evolution of arts and science, nothing would have happened. So basically photography is nothing but you're recording something. You're just basically recording the light of one event that you come across or you've been seeing or you saw. You just want to freeze the moment through different ways. And photography is one of the best ways to do this. So yeah, a need for photography. Why do you want photography? Like you can record your memories, you can document some events, some happenings, reveal something that's not seen, or that's not seen through your naked eye, or that's something very small in size. For example, um, macro images, some of the small tiny things you don't see at all. Photography helps you to see that. Or visualize. What does visualize mean? So it's generally said that a beauty of the photograph is in the art, I mean, in the eyes of the photographer. It starts from the photographer's eyes. It starts from the like step of visualizing what he wants, what he or she wants. Like, I cannot just take a camera and go start clicking. If I see a scene happening in front of me, if I know what my subject is, first thing that I have to do is visualize my event, like visualize what I want in my frame. That's very important, right? So these are a few things that that are required for photography. Gears. Okay, what are the gears that we will need for photography? Yeah, very simple. As I said you first, you must have heard about this thing called megapixels in camera. A lot of us do not really know what megapixels mean. So we generally believe that bigger this number is, greater your quality of the image, or greater quality of the machine that you have is. So even when people buy the cameras, I still remember the old early days cameras used to have this something called, I don't know how many of you had seen these cameras. Like in our early days, we used to see these cameras called VGA cameras. So then it became 0.7 megapixel cameras, and it became 1.3 megapixel cameras. And at that point, from VGA to 1.3 megapixel used to be a big shift. And like as a child, I honestly did not really know what did that mean. But I was so excited to have a 1.3 megapixel camera. We believed it's something to do with the clarity and the quality, all that. Then it slowly became 2MP, 5MP. I don't know now it's what the story is. I think now the iPhones go really crazy and they offer a lot of numbers, and the quality is drastically changing. So yeah, so I think I've seen off late, I've seen cameras. There are mobile phone cameras that says about 48 MPs, 50 MPs, 60 MPs. I don't really know. But it really doesn't really matter. I'll show you why. But yes, I is one of the very important this thing tool to visualize your image. That's where everything starts from. But they've also calculated what is the megapixels of an eye. It's a lot. So it's nothing close to what your mobile phone or your camera, nothing is. They say it's a few hundred megapixels, or it's close to some thousand. So that good your eye can be. But the point is, you see it, you only remember it. How do you show it to someone? That's where the photography comes. You see, you've seen it, you want everyone to see what you saw, right? That's the whole idea of photography. So that's why you first visualize. You need to know what you want to show, and you need to decide what you want to show. So you need to see first. Yeah. So expensive DSLR cameras. You see a lot of people now started having like bridge cameras, these DSLR cameras, and we have mobile cameras in our mobile phone. So the basic thing is, it doesn't really matter what machine do you have in the hand. Is it your entry level camera, or is it something like hi-fi, or the biggest camera, or it's your mobile phone, or is it still your Pentax camera? It doesn't really matter. It matters how you use them and how do you know to use them, right? So that's one thing very important. So I'll show you some mobile pictures that I've clicked in the past. So this is all some basic editing has been done, but it's mostly the mobile camera. So sorry. You can see the slides, right? Okay, now we'll get into science of photography. What does it really mean? What are the nuances of photography? Yeah, so technically, what is an image? Can someone answer? It's a technical definition of what an image means. You share images, you know what is an image, you have image in your mobile phone, you share it in different social media, you share it to people. What does it have? What is it? How do you define an image? An image? Someone? You can answer whatever it can be. Yes, you can go ahead and answer some.
A mental picture or an idea of somebody.
Okay.
A mental picture or an idea of somebody.
Okay. Anyone else? Visual, some Shrikar says visual representation of something. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. I'll go ahead. It's very simple. See here. Image is nothing but some information in it. Imagine you have a white sheet, white page, right? So white page is an empty page, right? So you start drawing it, it becomes the image. So you're giving some information to the white page. You're drawing, either you give color or you give black and whites, you just use blacks, or you give different colors. So you put it in different combinations to bring out something, right? That becomes your art. That's what your art is. Like, image is something very similar. You seeing light, you seeing something, you see some color, you're just freezing it. So your output file is something like your paper. It's in a digital form, which has informations of colors. It's just arranged in a matrix of pixels, square pixels in different colors, in different concentration and different combination. That shows you it can be a black and white image or it can be a color image, right? So it's just some information, pixel information that makes you see something, that frees something, right? So that's basically an image. Okay, so to do this, how does a camera work, right? If you see something, for example, you sitting in front of a mountain, you know how to, like if you know how to draw, it's very simple. And you can just sit there, make yourself comfortable, you can start sketching. It's technically another image, just that you did not do it with any other object camera like an object, but you drew it. But it's very much the same thing. If you can bring, for example, say 90% precision. So the early days people, cartographers and all those old peoples do that. So they take people who know to draw. If you say Google, if you Google for old images of illustrations of landscape, old British time landscape images and all, they don't know, they don't have camera. So they used to take illustrations, I mean illustrationists with them. So this person's only job will be to sit and draw what they see, right? They draw plants, they draw animals, they draw landscape. Everything is technically an image, but it's a manual form of doing it. So they used to draw. Now, after the invention of camera, we mechanized the whole process. You don't want anyone to draw the whole thing anymore. The advantage of this is you don't lose information. So when you draw, there is also chance of you manipulate things, right? You see tree in one shape, this person would have drew it in a different shape. Like hills, precisions might change, positions might change. So now we started having camera. Everything is mechanized, so it can freeze whatever is right in front of your eyes. It can be frozen in a digital form. That's what your image is, and that keeps information as some pixels and shows you as an image. So to do this, we need a camera. What does a camera do? How does a camera work? How does it see? How does it see something? How does it record something? We'll see all this. How many of you in your schools had already come across this experiment of pinhole camera? Can put it in message. How many of you had seen this?
Sorry to interrupt. Hello.
Sorry?
Now, students and participants, they can unmute themselves and directly can interact. I have given permission to all, so feel free. That's it. Thank you.
How many of you are in class 6, class 5? I guess in my class 5th or 6th, I've seen all this. No one in class 6, class 7?
Yes,
Have you-
I have.
Yes, it is in our science textbook.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
I have also
I have
seen.
also seen in my physics textbook.
yeah, exactly. It comes in your physics class. But do you have an experiment of this in your school? Anyone?
Yes, sir, I have done this experiment.
Okay, fine. So this is exact. Okay, cool. So some of you had seen this. So this is exactly how a camera also works, right? You see an object in front, and then you also know this is how our eyes work, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the light comes and then flips and then again flips back, and then you see that as a real-time image. This is the same principle. As I said, like our eyes and more camera lenses are almost similar, capturing pixels, megapixels. Your camera also is doing the same job. Just like how you seeing it, your camera is also seeing the same thing. It flips it, and then the lens helps it flips it back to get it to the sensor and record the whole thing. Okay, so how many of you had seen this film cameras? Is anyone having one in house?
Yes, I have.
You have a film camera. Who's this?
Sir, this DSLR.
No, not DSLR.
Sir, I also have one.
The Kodak film camera. You only can collect 32 images in this. Have you
Yes.
seen anyone?
Yes,
So the
ma'am.
film looks something like this.
Sir, I have it.
Oh, you
I
have
have
it.
it.
Oh, cool.
Sir, I also have it.
Okay, but do you know how it works? How is it?
Yes.
How it records?
Yes. Yes, sir, I took
Sir,
it.
at the
I
eye
took a
also.
photo of
Okay.
my grandfather.
Oh, okay. Do you know how it becomes from your film? It becomes a printed photograph.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Now you have your mobile phones. You have your camera. It's all in
Yes.
digital form. You just put it in computer. You have a printer. It just prints it, right? But these
Yeah.
things, if you see, it's a film. It's like hand. You can handle the film separately, and your image will be in the film. Okay. How is it printed?
What, sir? Can you please repeat?
No, I'm asking, now you have your mobile phones, you can print it. Like you have a well-defined, well-constructed printer. How does a film becomes a printed image? You know what that film is called? What do they call the films? Anyone?
No,
Read.
sir.
Reels. Reels.
What?
Reel.
Not reels. There's another technical term to it. No, they call it negative.
What, sir?
They call it negative. Okay, I'll tell you. So these films are called negatives. You know what happens? So the light passes through the back of the camera as you read here. Okay, so wherever there is a subject, if you see the film, yeah, if any of you had seen this film, if you put it like against the light, wherever you stand in the image, you won't see it dark. You will see those things transparent. Okay, so it is negative. It's what you see in real time is the positive image, and what you will see in the film will be the negative image. So it actually captures the negative side of it, not the positive side of it. Then it will be processed in a place called dark room. In the old movies and all, if you see this, people do photograph and then they go to a room. It will have a dark light. It will be having a kind of red light. So it should not be exposed to light. If it is exposed to light, it will become bright. Everything will become bright. So you should not even open the film when it's in the camera. So then it is taken to a lab, and then they do all this process. They put it in a sheet, and then they put it against a sheet which has the gelatin coat, and then it reacts. Wherever there is a negative image, it becomes positive. Wherever it was positive, it will become negative. Then it flips back, and then you get the real-time image. That's what happens in the older times. That's what your film cameras do. See here. So once you captured your photo, it is time to develop the film. So development process involving dipping several special chemicals. Developer help the image become visible. Developed image gives you a negative image. Okay, this means dark objects will look light, light objects will look dark. To print your photo, you must shine the light through the negative film. This creates a shadow on your special photosensitive paper, and then you get it printed. So it's a lot of process that happened in the past. So all this should happen in a very controlled environment. You cannot do a lot of things. You turn on your light, all the images are gone. People do these mistakes. Like, I mean, I've done it in the past. I had a Kodak camera in the house. Once you put the film, there is a way how you remove it from it. You just take it, open it. If it is exposed to light, it's all gone. All the photographs that you clicked is gone. You can't do anything. So these are some of the old methods of photographing. Then it became digitized. Now we don't use this anymore. It's time consuming, it is expensive, a lot of things were there. So everything got mechanized and modernized, and camera was not a just example, and then they also mechanized everything. Now we are in digital era of you holding camera. Okay, so this is technically your camera. How many of you had seen a DSLR camera like this, a big camera like this?
I have.
You have seen? Okay, see.
I have it, sir.
Okay, you all have it. Okay, tell me one thing. So your lens is, you can see my cursor moving, no?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
let me move it. Okay, see the cursor. Your lens is here, right? Your lens is in this direction.
Okay,
But
sir.
if you take, sorry. Okay, so your lens is in this direction. Where you will see in your camera is here. This is called the viewfinder. Okay, is your viewfinder and your camera in straight line? No, right?
No.
Then how do you see your like whatever you're seeing through your lens? How do you see it in your viewfinder?
Mirror, like
Yes.
reflections.
Yes. So it's, you're not actually seeing the real time. What you're seeing is a reflection through a multiple levels of reflection through a mirror inside. Okay. So if you dismount your camera, unfortunately we're not present there, otherwise I could show a camera. So the light passes like this, and there will be a lens, I mean there will be a mirror like this in 45 degrees, something like that. And then the light hits here, it reflects here, and then from there there's another mirror, it reflects back here, and this is what you will see through your viewfinder. Okay, this is how the lighting principle works. So your camera is seeing something, and this is how the red line is whatever shown here is you are watching this. But how is camera going to watch? If there is a mirror here, and if it is reflecting all the lights back here, and then it goes out like this, how is it going to record? There's something called an image sensor here, and that's what is going to record your image. How is it going to do that? Okay, so what happens is when you click your image in the DSLR cameras, how many of you had heard this clack clack sound?
Like,
When you click the DSLR cameras, you hear the sound, no? Tack, 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 tack.
yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. So what happens is, so behind this lens, the mirror that you're seeing here, don't do this at home, don't spoil your cameras. But if you can remove this lens, if you would have seen people removing the lens and changing the lens. So when you remove the lens,
Yes, sir. There is an option to remove the lens and keep a new lens.
yes. So when you remove the lens in your main camera body unit, you will see the mirror inside. Okay, this mirror is not fixed. This mirror, what will happen is, when you click the image, it is like in this position, no? It will flip, it will go on the top, and it will become flat. So when you click the image, the light goes and hits the image sensor. So behind your mirror, there will be a image sensor. When you click the image, that is also why if you have actually not the mirrorless one, if you have a mirrored DSLR camera, when you click the image, you won't see what's happening inside. For a brief of a few seconds, it just disappears. That is because the mirror will go up, allowing the light to pass to the sensor. So behind this behind the mirror, you will have the image sensor, which is called a shutter. So you would have heard this term called shutter speed, shutter, all that. Okay. it's technically a shutter. So the image sensor is also very fragile glass, and that will be closed by a shutter. So when you click the image, the mirror goes up like this, and then the light hits the sensor. To let the light hit the sensor, shutter will open. Briefly, it will open, it will record all the light, it will close it. Okay. Like how many of you had seen this in the house? When you sleep in the night, so you have all the lights turned off in the night, and somewhere outside your window, there will be a small light. Okay. It's not even in your house. It will be far away from your house. When you turn off the light, it will become completely dark. But after a while, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you don't have light inside your room, but it will become bright because there is a light somewhere far away. How many of you have realized it?
I have.
You
So
have,
we are quite similar.
sorry?
Sir, it will be like a small bit. It is somewhere a large. This is after. Have we
Yeah. Yeah, and suddenly when you wake up in the midnight, it will be so bright. Okay, when you turn off the light, you won't feel it. It will all be dark. And then suddenly in the midnight, if you see, there will be so much light in your room, but that bulb or that light source will not be in your room, right? So this is a principle called light traveling. So what happens is, the amount of,
rectilinear phenomena of light.
sorry,
Rectilinear phenomenon of light.
something like that. So this is in camera, it works in a very different way. So you're using something like that. What happens is, imagine you standing inside your window. Okay, so you have the windows door in like upwards moving door in the hand. You have the door closed and you are inside the dark. Okay, you are the image sensor now. So you will be recording the light. Imagine you close the window, like you close the door like this, and then you just open your window door for just a second. Like you open like this and tuck, you close it back. So you open it only for a second. So you don't see much light because your time that you opened and closed was very small, right? You see only little light. If you keep it open for 1 minute and close it down, how much light you will see in the 1 minute?
More light.
You will see more light, right?
More
So
than
that is-
1 second light.
Exactly. So that is what the shutter will also do. Shutter is always closed with the image sensor.
That it is same like a shop shutter, which you open and close.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So your image, assume you are the image sensor. You are standing behind the shutter. You are recording the light. Whatever you are seeing, you are going to record it if you are a computer. Okay. So the image sensor is also doing the same thing. So when you click the image, when you press the this thing clicking button, your shutter opens and you will do all the settings of how much time the shutter has to open, how much light has to come in. That all comes in your camera settings. Okay. So when your shutter opens, the light falls in the image sensor and then it records. And then briefly it opens and tuck, it closes again. And whatever light was recorded, whatever light fell in the image sensor is going to be recorded, and that information is gathered by the camera, and that it will process as image. So that is how you get your image in a DSLR camera. Okay. So why is it called DSLR camera? Do you know why it is called a DSLR camera? See here, DSLR is digital single lens reflex. Okay, so in your whole camera, there is only one lens. Okay, with one lens, there are two things happening. One is your image sensor is also seeing the light. You're letting your image sensor also see it, and you are also seeing. So there are two observers. If you assume the image sensor is an independent unit, so you are seeing the light, you also letting your image sensor see, but it happens only through a single lens reflex. Okay, and it is all this process are digitized. That's why it's called a digital single lens reflex. Okay, but in the past, do you know how they did all this? See here. So these are the old cameras. If you Google, you might see some of the old videos of these cameras, how they handle it. So they put like huge black cloth and all that. When you're using these cameras, they go inside the black cloth. You don't see the photographer. Photographer will be within the black cloth and he'll be doing. And if you see the camera in front of you, you'll see two lenses. So these two lenses will be aligned in some position. It will both see the same subject, but for two different purposes. The lens below that you're seeing will record the light for your image. The lens above is for you to see. So it's called the twin reflex camera. So only after the invention of the mirror and the reflectance, they removed this lens out of it. So it's called the SLR camera, single lens reflex camera. Earlier it used to be twin lens reflex. This is all some like 50, 60 years old. Now I don't think anyone uses it. This is all being like nice souvenirs somewhere kept inside. No one uses these anymore. But people used to do this. Then slowly in time, it became very easier. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So does it mean that the image we see using a viewfinder, it's a raw image, and the image we see after it hits the image sensor, it's the processed image?
So what hits the image, the sensor and what you see is going to be both same. But what happens after it hits the sensor will be different. So it will start processing.
Yeah, so after the image after the light hits the shutter or the image sensor, so that image is the same what we see through viewfinder or not? Because I have tried using a DSLR.
Sorry.
So pardon. I have tried using a DSLR, and at that time, so there is a slight color difference in both.
Yes, I'll tell you why that happens. So technically, what the subject that you're seeing is same, but the output that you'll see will be two different things. Okay, so there are a lot of things in play. What depth your eyes can see, what depth your camera can see, or there are settings. No, what depth did you allow your camera to see? You can see the depth, but did you allow your camera to see? Right, so there are a lot of settings. I'll come to the settings in a little while, but there will definitely be a huge difference between what you see and what your output is. I'll tell you why that happens. Okay, so yeah, so this is your image sensor. So this converts your light, whatever it saw as light, to a electronic signal. So that signal will be sent behind the sensor through something called a Bayer filter. Okay, so the Bayer filter can only see the primary colors. It will only pass the red, green, and blue colors. So primary colors can make any colors, right? So it doesn't work with CMYK, but it works with the RGB. So it has the RGB sensors at the back. It will convert the electronic signals it will take RNG and B signals and send it to the Bayer filter. And behind that, something like this happens. So the Bayer filter will have red filter, green filter, and blue filter like this. So wherever there is red light, it will record in one place, and where there's green light, it will record. Where there's combinations, it will record all that, and your resulting pattern will be something like this. So it's basically just RGB. So everything is just RGB, right? So you saw the colors, your sensor saw the light, and it converted it to electronic signal. Sorry?
Red, green, blue.
Yes, RGB. RGB are the primary colors, no? Okay, yeah. So this is what it happens. So the image sensor will convert your light to electronic signal. Your electronic signal will tell, okay, see this many amount of red I have, this many amount of green I have, this many amount of blue I have, and some are like different combinations. You have to produce these colors. It will tell all that signals in numbers, in some information, like how you use computer codes and all that. It will give information to the processing unit. There will also be a processing unit in your camera. It will tell the camera to process all these colors in this pattern, whatever pattern it saw. Okay, so that will be your resulting image. So something like this. So this is what you would have actually seen. It will be something like this because it's just light. Then it converts into an electronic signal, convert that light into colors based on what shade it had seen. And then from that, you will get your resulting image, something like this. Okay, the first and four are slightly different here because what your eye see, camera cannot always record. Okay, it depends on your settings and your camera and a lot of things together. Okay, but basically this is what happens from your first to the fourth step. So it sees this is the light, this is the pure light, and then it becomes electronic signals, and then you see as an image. See here. So original scene, the first point, if you see, original scene output of a sensor before entering Bayer filter, and then output, it defines colors here, and then it reconstructs the image. based on whatever information you gave. Okay, so whatever image that you see in your phone and in your camera, the moment you click it, you see whatever, like you have a display and then you see it, right? So all these are in the JPEG form. You know JPEG form, right? So JPEG is the widely used imaging format. JPEG is a processed image. It's, I mean, imagine, I mean, like keep in mind, it's not light, it's a processed image. Somebody already processed the whole image. Okay, that's why you see the complete photo out of it. So how many of you did recently read this news about people photographing the black hole for the first time?
Yeah, I have heard about it. I don't know the depth of it.
Yeah. So the whole world was so excited when they said like, oh, we photographed black hole. Okay, it became a big news, and then a group of scientists from different countries put together. They had set like several telescopes and reading machines in different parts of the world, and then they got information. And if you see the image, how many of you had seen this image, black hole? How many of you had seen this? No one had seen this? Okay, some Drisha had seen. Okay. But did anyone read the news about how big of a raw data? You saw the image, right? The image was nothing. It's just black in color. And then you saw some golden donut-like stuff in it. And people are so excited about it. Okay. And if you see it, like, what's there in the image? There's nothing. It's just black hole. Why are you so excited? Why the whole world is so excited about someone just taking a small round image? Okay. But if you read the news, they'll also tell you how much information they wanted, how much of raw data they wanted to construct the image. Okay. This is the same principle. The black hole is nowhere close to us. It's far away. Okay. And light to reach here from that far is going to take so much time. Okay, light is fast, but then it's so far away that you can't even see that light. That light doesn't come here. So they need to build a lot of things to receive that light. Okay, that's technically is your image. I told you the light comes and then you record your light. Okay, so they had to record years and years of light to see some small image like that, because it's that far. Farther your object is, light is going to come slower. That also I'll tell you. Okay, if I'm close to you, you see me, the light travels faster back to you. Okay, how do you generally basically see anything? Light falls on the subject and then it hits back, and then you see the reflection basically, right? If there is no light, you don't see anything. So black hole is also light. You have to see the light back from the place where it actually exists, right? So what they did is they had to take a lot of years and years of light that comes from far away. They had to record the whole thing, and then they convert into a image. So that information to construct an image of a simple black hole, it was several trillion GBs, several trillion GBs of information they wanted. Just to process it, it took so much time. Okay, so what does that mean? Like the image is just 5 KB. I can download it in 1 KB. Why did these people need so much information? That's something called raw image. Okay, so the photograph that you see in your camera and everything is just a processed image. Just someone asked me, why does it look a little different? So there's something called a raw image function. Okay, so your camera can do two things, or do both the things simultaneously. One thing, it sees the light and it records the light. It will send it to the sensor. It will process it. It will process it for you. It will do the light corrections. It will do some basic color corrections and everything. Because it will have some issues while seeing light. There will be too much light on one side. You see light from direct vision, then your image will be over bright and all that. So to some extent, if there is a small computer within your camera, it will work on all this small issues and all. It will work on it, and then it will give you a better and perfect image. That is what you see as your JPEG image. But in most of the cameras, I think now it started coming in the mobile phones also, you have this raw image functions. Raw image means raw is technically not an image. You cannot call it an image because it's not processed. Okay, your image is a final product. So raw is a file, or it's just information. So this will be a group set of information. You cannot open the raw information. So this will be set of information, just a pure recording of what the camera saw, how much light it saw, how much color it saw, how much of depth it saw, everything it will just record in terms of information and not in form of the color code. Okay, it will just take everything. It wouldn't do any filtering, anything, nothing. It will just take it from the sensor and just records it, just what you see in real time. But the problem with that is it will just be a huge file, just like how I just told you about the this thing, black hole. So even in my camera, if I click a JPEG image, I'll get an output image of 5 MB. Okay, so if I click a raw image, where I use also raw function, I will have minimum of 35 MB of the same image. Okay, but this will be 35 MB. The other one will be just 3 to 5 MB. It's so small. So once you process your image, all the information that was not used for the function for the photograph will be lost. Okay, so there's something called raw function. So what you can do with raw function is you can manually edit. There are a lot of Photoshop photo softwares like Lightroom, Photoshop, Inkscape, and a lot of things. This function also is available for your videos. So you can also do raw videos. If you open, there are softwares like to open the raw image. You can, if you open the raw image, you'll not like your image. It will look like bland. It will look like some very dull kind of image. It won't be sharp. It won't be nothing. Okay. The only thing is, once you get your raw information, you have to sit and stitch everything together. What the small computer in the camera did, you will have to manually do. So the advantage with that will be, if you are a good photographer, if you're a better visualizer, you know how your image is supposed to look, what color you want, what size of information you want, how crisp you want it to be. So you can do a lot of these manipulations in raw image, and it gives you better quality. To some extent you can do in your JPEG images, but then JPEG is already processed, so there is no raw information inside, so it will start struggling, and then it will start pixelating, it will start giving you bad pictures, right? So that is why you can use raw functions. Raw is just information, so you can do anything with your raw image. You can do a lot of edits, so you can bring back the light which was not there to some extent. You can put something to dark, you can bring some colors, and so sometimes if you think your camera did not handle your colors properly, you can build the colors based on how you want it. And it has to be true. You cannot manipulate it, but then you can bring very good colors to your image. So the raw works like that. So that is why raw images are a very important function in your cameras. So just some of your mobile phones, you can go and check there's something called the pro mode in your mobile phones these days. You can do some of these functions in the mobile phone. Again, you can get the raw image. You can see the difference between the size of the images. Normal images will be like 3-4 MB. This will go till like 20 MB and all that. Just check once this is done. Yeah. So types of sensors, not super necessary.
I had a question.
I believe. Sorry?
I had a question.
Yeah.
You said the light gets recorded in RGB. Can the light be recorded in CMYK in any camera?
No, it doesn't do CMYK functions in these cameras anymore.
Anymore, or because
it never used, I
design
believe,
students prefer CMYK for larger
printing.
Larger printing. Yes.
Yeah, that's always a problem. So the problem is the amount of colors that you have or can see through RGB is wide, and the amount of colors that you can see through your CMYK is very narrow. Okay, it works better for the printing functions for a different reason, but for your recording function, RGB is the better way. CMYK is not. CMYK cannot give you better greens, cannot give you better blues. A lot of problem will be there. So the problem is when you want your image printed.
Okay.
Then you will get into then you'll get into problem, because your image will look in one color. When you print it, they'll use CMYK. So generally what people do is they work, if you want to print your images, they work on CMYK. So there is a way where you can shift your image from RGB to CMYK in the software that you use. Then you have to do some color alterations to see how best it fits. Still, there will be a problem in colors. There are now RGB printers, very expensive, that can give you perfect colors. But in early days, it was always CMYK. It was never RGB colors. Okay, but camera doesn't do a CMYK, I believe. I don't know any camera that worked on a CMYK function. It is always RGB.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So sensors, this is purely something to do with your DSLR camera. There are two different sizes of sensors. This is also something that you asked previously. So the size of the sensor also determines the amount of the light that falls in, because if the sensor is small, there is a restricted amount of light that can fall in. If the sensor is big, it can be bigger. So this is called full frame sensor and the crop sensors. Full frame sensors are, because it's full frame, it's very expensive and a lot of things. Crop sensor has its own problem. It's small in size, it cannot get a lot of light. If you are someone who's interested in landscape photography, some wide photography and all that, you should definitely go for a full frame sensor, because it can take so much light from all the sides. Crop sensor will not do all that. So crop sensor is okay if you're doing portrait, if you're doing humans, if you're just doing animals, something like that. Crop sensor is still fine for you. Yeah. So these are some of the functions that you will see in your camera. Okay, so there's something called a focal distance. Where do you see this is in your lens? If you like twist your lens, you see some numbers in front of it. Okay, it will say 18 to 55 or like 70 to 300 or 18 to 135, all this. So this is just the distance between the image sensor and the lens, and that will be directly correlated with the distance from your object and the lens. I mean, all object and the sensor. So it's a very technical term to use the camera. So in short, if you see lens with short focal length, if it is 18 in numbers, it means wide. Okay, so smaller the number is, your subject is going to be wide. Longer the focal length is, you're going to get a sharp image. For example, if you want to photograph a hill, 18 would be the ideal. But if you want to photograph a small animal in the hill, then you can go for 150. So more bigger the number is, more narrower it will become, and then it will become, the frame also becomes smaller. Okay. Yeah, you can see it here. If it is 10 mm, see how much the camera can see. If it is 50 mm, see how much the camera can see, and see when it goes to 300 mm, only this, it's all the same scene. Okay, this is how much the camera can see. You can also see here what fits what. So if it is 10 to 35, it's good for architecture, landscape and all that. Somewhere between 50, 70 and all is documentary. 100, 135 is okay for portraiture. 200 is also still fine. For if you want to use for wildlife, birds, animals and all that, more the better, because you're going to be like in far. You're not going to stay close to an elephant or stay close to a bird. So 300 mm, 200 mm all works better for your wildlife photography. So you need to know what your subject is. Depending on your subject, you need to select your lenses. Sorry. So there are these three things that are very important. Although your camera, as I said, can bring the light, record the light and do some processing, all this the camera will do. But then there are these functions that will hamper all this process. So there are these three are the mantra for the camera. If you get these three things right, your image will be fine. Because if you do not give right settings, your camera is more like your slave. It will just do what you told it to do. Okay, it doesn't work independently unless you put it in auto mode. Okay, if you don't want it in auto mode, you have to tell the camera, you have to tell, like the shutter principle that I told, like you have to tell the camera how much time the shutter has to be open, depending on how your subject is outside. You have to tell the camera what is your ISO going to be and what the aperture has to be. I'll tell you what these are. Okay, so this is the shutter speed. Okay, so just like the window example that I gave you, if you open your window just 1/1000 a second, the amount of light that falls in will be very little. So assume if you are an image sensor, then your image is going to be dark. Okay, faster the shutter, image will be darker. As it goes to smaller, the shutter to a higher level, so this is 1 second. Okay, then you will get more light inside. But also the problem is, if your subject is not static, if your subject is moving, I also told you it's also recording light in real time. Okay, if the shutter is open for 2 seconds if I keep moving my hands like this, okay, it will record all the light, right? It will just not record my hand because it's not a video camera, it's photographic camera. It's going to give you one image of all the information. So for 2 seconds, wherever my hand waves, it will record all that and it will give you a blurry picture. How many of you had seen these blurry pictures when you take somehow it becomes blurry? You don't know why it's blurry. Okay, that's because your subject is moving. If your subject is moving and if it is not freezing in one go, you will have a blurry image like this. As you see in camera, it will be blurring now because it's moving, right? So faster your shutter, you get sharper image, but it becomes darker because the amount of light that goes into the sensor is very less. The opening time is very less, but slower it becomes, more light comes in, but also the image becomes blurrier. Okay, so this is one of the 3. Just keep this in mind one side. So how you have to do is you have to find a middle line somewhere between you getting more brighter or you getting more darker or you getting blurrier image or complete sharper darker image. Somewhere in between, if you find a place, you will have enough light, you will also have a unblurry sharp image. Okay, so you can have the settings in the mind, and there is an also other function in the camera called aperture. Okay, so in your lens, if you see, I don't know how many of you noticed, there are blades. So these are like the white color things that you're seeing here are actually the blades. They will be inside your lenses. Okay, so if you set this, there is a function called F in your camera. So that is called aperture. Aperture is defined as F. So narrower the aperture, so the wider the aperture, the blades will open completely. So if the blade opens completely, there is so much light coming in. Okay, as it goes narrower like this, lesser light comes in. But the problem here is the flip of shutter speed. There I said, bigger the number is, sorry, the amount of time that's higher is, it will become bright. So the flip function, you see, this side is dark, this side is bright. So there it is, this side is dark, this side will be bright. So here, this will be your midline. Here also what happens is, if your aperture is wide, if we will leave it for more time, so it is a lens function. There's something called depth, how much depth your eye can see. I think now your mobile cameras have this function called portrait. If you click the portrait function, your subject will be in sharp image, all your background will become blurred, right? So that is because of an aperture function. Your mobile phones don't have an aperture blade, but it digitally works something like that. That's why the edges will not be clear. But the function is something like that. If the aperture is wide, you will have very good depth of field. For example, you just want to take a photograph of a bird and there are so much of things in the back. So your depth of field can be somewhere 2.5, 2.8 or like 4, so that your image will just be in focus. Everything behind your image will be in blur. So it's called a bokeh effect. Okay. So here also the same thing. So narrower it becomes, the image becomes sharper, crispier, and then wider the aperture is, it will have more depth to the image. So how do you control this? Is somewhere find the midline. So this midline will also work with your shutter speed midline. Then you get the perfect image, unless you know how to handle all this. So you also always have to find the midline between this and that. So you get better light, better focus, better sharp image, and not dark ones. Okay. And then there's something called, okay, this is the example for depth of field. You see this f2.8. You don't see these two batteries at all. So if f16, you see this battery, but this one is still a little blurred. If you see this one, f32, all the batteries can be seen. You see the difference.
But is it like focusing special? It is like focusing only one battery and out focusing all batteries.
No. So what happens is, if you focus, for example, if in the third image, I focused, that's called the focusing function, right? So you want to focus, depending on how you turn your lens, you can focus which point on your whole frame needs to be focused. Okay. So assume that if I just focused here, if the aperture is low, aperture is wide, these batteries will not be seen. This will be seen, but this won't be seen. Okay. And if I put it somewhere in the middle, only this battery will be seen. These two cannot be seen. So it depends on what the aperture is. That's why the aperture comes into the play. It's also the focus. The focus is basically you put a focus on your subject, but then just because you put focus in your subject doesn't mean that everything else should be shown in the image. Okay, you need to decide. So in your image, do you want to show only your subject or things behind it? For example, if I have these 3 batteries aligned, if I have 3 different colors of batteries, I will decide to show only one battery to you. I don't want you to see the next 2 batteries. You can see the batteries, but you don't read anything on it. Okay, then I will decide to go with this aperture and decide, okay, 1 battery is fine for this for him to see. Okay, if I want you to show all the batteries, then I will select this function F32 and show you all 3 batteries. Okay, this is how you should play a little around with the aperture and see what your subject is going to be. If you're taking a photograph of a lot of people and all that, you better go with a narrow aperture. So you want everyone in the picture to be in focus, not like 1 or 2 head. Okay, that's what is called the depth of field. See here, this is your focus. Both of the photographs, the face of the doll, the monkey, is in the focus, but what you see behind is very different. Your focus is static. In both the images, the focus is here only. But if you keep your aperture something very wide like this, you don't see anything. So here in the image, you can explain saying that, see, I want my viewers only to see the doll. Just enjoy the background, but don't get into the nuances. Don't go and read what's there, how many poles are there, what is there, and all that. So you will get diverted. So if your idea is that, if you visualize it like that, or if you visualize it like that, you want to show your viewers everything in the image, then you can select this function. Okay, so these are some of the functions that are available in your digital DSLR cameras, not to big extent in your mobile phones. Okay, so these are some functions, and there's also something called ISO. So if you have, for example, you need a faster shutter speed because your animal is running. If you're photographing a running cheetah, you can't put your shutter speed down. You have to keep it higher. And then you also want to keep it sharper. So you'll go somewhere middle aperture. If you don't still get light, if you know, okay, this function is not going to work, the function is right, but I will not get enough light that I wanted, then there is something called ISO. Okay, so increasing ISO will artificially increase your light. This light doesn't come from outside. Okay, this is not a light that your camera is seeing. This is a light your camera will make it on its own. Okay, there is an international standard set to how the sensitivity of the light has to be for each of the numbers. Across the cameras, it will all be the same, but you are artificially making light. Okay, that is what your ISO function will do. But the problem with this also is, if you push your camera to make more artificial light, you'll get grain image. So it's not natural light, right? It's making it by itself. It's a very artificial light. So depending on the quality of your camera, if it is a cheap camera and all that, it won't handle properly. But now there are cameras for like the higher end. This is 32,000. No, this is 3,200. This 3,200 is nothing for this camera. There are the new cameras. You can go up to 64,000 ISOs in mid pitch dark. You can photograph and it will still be bright without a grainy image. Okay, there are cameras like that. It's just depending on what camera you have in hand, you have to understand these functions and play around with it, and you get a better image. Okay. Yeah, so these are some of the modes available in your camera. So this is, if you have a DSLR camera, you see all this: manual, aperture, and shutter speed priority, and ISO program mode, and automatic mode. So manual means you will set everything. You will set the aperture, you will set the shutter speed, you will set the ISO, everything is your control. Aperture priority is you will only set the aperture. You will know how the depth of the field of your image has to be. Rest, your shutter speed and your ISO and all that, your camera will decide. So, or in this case, shutter speed you will decide. Rest of the other things your camera will decide. In program mode, only you decide ISO. Rest everything your camera will decide. Automatic mode, you don't do anything. You just click your image. You just frame your subject. You just click. It will decide everything. But the problem with that will be, depending on the light, it will start giving you blurry images and all that. It will do wrong calculations all the time. And like especially in the nights, if you do, it will give you very bad calculations. Okay. So these are some of the functions. Depending on your level of expertise, you can choose what to do. Okay. Generally, people, what they do is when they are newcomers, they start with automatic mode. They'll understand how to handle the camera first. Then they will go to shutter speed mode or aperture mode. They will try to control one of the functions and see how it behaves. Then they'll shift to shutter speed, or like they'll come back to this one. Both of these individual functions, they'll use it for some time. Then they'll get some expertise. Then they finally go to the manual mode. Manual mode is a professional level photography. So you can start with this, and then you can slowly go play around with all these three and then get to the manual mode. So for all this, you just need to have a basic understanding of what is aperture, what is shutter speed, how shutter speed works, and what is ISO. Just the basics of all this you need to know. Yeah. So yeah, after knowing all this, you know the functions, you know everything about your camera, you know all this, how to bring your subject, how to frame your image, what should you show in your image, how to like decide what should be shown in your image. So there are some other set of rules that will get you a nice image, provided you have a good camera with basic idea of all these small functions of your camera. Now you need to know how you frame your image. Okay. So basically photography is nothing, I told you, so this comes from the paintings. People used to paint, we started doing it, but in a digitized way. We don't do paint anymore, we started digitizing. But a lot of things we started copying. I mean, not copying, we just adapted whatever already all these like older artists did. They had a lot of rules for their paintings. They know what to draw, how to draw, what proportion of what has to be in the image, how do you get attracted to an image and all that. So there are some principles, and like there are small tricks. So photography also almost uses all of these principles to make your subject, like to make your frame look better and attract people for different reasons. For example, so it's called composition. How you compose, like how you put your image in one place and what you put inside all that. Okay. So there are some rules. We'll see a very few things, not get into much nuances. So there's something called rule of thirds. Okay. So you see, this is your display. Assume you're holding your phone in front of you. Okay, so you see your display, and what you see and what your camera is showing will be displayed. Okay, you can flip it. This is in landscape mode. You can also put it in portrait. So assume you have 9 boxes or 4 lines, like parallel and perpendicular to each other. So your subject has to be in one of the 2 lines, or it should cover all of this. The points that you see, your subject has to be somewhere here or here or here or here or everywhere. So your subject has to fall in one of these points. It cannot be here, or it cannot be here, or it cannot be here. Okay, or it cannot be here. Okay, depending on what you're choosing, you have to place your subject in one of these points. You can just read the description of this. See, if a frame is divided into 9 equal parts by 2 equally spaced horizontal and vertical lines, the important compositional elements, that is your subject, what you want to show, okay, should be placed along these lines or at the intersections. It cannot be in middle of it, okay, or not in where the intersections are met. If it's not placed in the PowerPoints, in the subject should occupy space in all 9 boxes. Okay, either you place within one of these points or in the lines, or it has to occupy all the 9 boxes. Okay, so this is one of the important rules to make your image look better. I'll show you some examples to how to do this. See this. Here in this image, this lady here is the subject. If you visualize the lines here, so there is going to be one line here, and one line here, here one line, and then here one line. So I place this lady in this line. Okay, so there is a lot of space here, but it's okay. So the lady's functions, what she's doing some drumming, that is on the right side. Okay, to your right side, her left side. Okay, so that's why I kept this space, more space here. I'll tell you why. I could have kept her here, but then her functions are oriented towards the right, so I leave more space around the right side. Okay, see here. Here also I kept the subject here. Okay, this also I kept it here. Okay, so this is the rule of thirds. You have to place subjects in one of these lines, And if you want to see how to, if you do not know how to visualize without having these grid lines, your mobile cameras do have this function called grid lines. You go and select the grid function, it will show you the grids. Then you can easily do this. Just start practicing with that. Then you will know how to place this. It becomes easier. Then you can turn it off over time. Okay, so eye contact rule. So as you see me here in the screen, you see me right in the middle, right? Okay. For example, if I want to keep this image and use rule of thirds, I'll be keeping my head here somewhere. Okay, or here somewhere. So to make it fall in one of the lines. So eye contact rule is something. So you give more space towards the direction where your eye are seeing. Okay, for example, I'll say because I'm seeing you like this, I'm sitting like this. Okay, if I'm turning on this side, so towards where I am seeing, you leave more light. Okay, you don't, and also you follow the rule of thirds in this. So you can't like put a frame like this. So here what happens is I will be seeing in this direction to the other direction, but you will have more empty space toward back of my head. Okay, so it's a very common thing for human beings. When you see an image, you see the subject. For example, if there is a monkey in your image, okay, you see the monkey and you will first see the monkey's face. It's a very human thing. And where you next thing, what you will notice is you will also want to see where your monkey is watching it. Okay, so that is the idea of eye contact rule. You won't never see what is happening behind it. So it's a very basic eye to eye thing. You see your image, you will also want to see where your image is, your subject is watching. So that is the basic eye contact rule. I'll show you some examples for it. For example, this fellow is sleeping, but it's okay. See, I leave more space here. I don't want to leave more space back, because the moment I see the cat, I will want to see what it is watching. If it has the open eyes now, I'll be interested in seeing what it is watching. So I leave more space there so that my head turns there. Okay. For example, here, see, all these birds are luckily in one direction. If two of these birds were in opposite side, then I'll be screwed. I don't know how to frame. Then it becomes tricky. Luckily, all the birds were looking at one direction. Now I'll also want to see what's there. Okay, so there's more space here. And this is me. This is an experiment I did during one of my field works. So this, I clicked myself, I set the camera, I did the framing and all, kept it in one place, went back and put it in the auto mode, went back and sat. So this is also the same thing. I'm sitting here. This is, it follows both rule of thirds. So the rule is here, and then the eye contact rule also works. Okay. Here I cannot put here because you will see me and then you want to see what I'm looking at. Okay. Then you don't want to see what is behind me. So the whole idea of eye contact rule is that. Here also, you see, this person is looking at this direction. So this is the eye contact rule. So you have to follow both eye contact rule and the rule of thirds to get your image really good. Yeah, see here. So he is doing some action. So there has to be more space towards what he's doing here. Okay, so these are some of the very basic ideas of composition. One thing is rule of thirds, and then the other one is this. And also, I think I did not include in the slide. A lot of people do photograph landscapes. Okay, how do you photograph landscapes? Generally, what people do is they show 50-50. If you're seeing a hill, people will include in your frame 50% of the hill, 50% of the sky. You should never do that. So your frame should always be 60-40. 60% of your hill, 40% of your sky, or it has to be 40% of the hill and 60% of the sky. So you should always make sure this composition is maintained 60-40 either ways. Okay, a lot of people do it like in midline, then it becomes 50-50 image, it becomes less admirable. Okay, so now you can put all these things together in telling stories. How do you tell stories out of your image? Okay, photography has become a very important tool for all of us. And early days, people used to paint everything, even for like I do work on reptiles, I said, no. So a lot of things, for example, if I am working on a snake, I want to know what the snake is eating. Okay, early days, for example, if you lived 100 years before, there was no camera. if you see the snake eating something, what will you do? Can't do anything. You have to write and you have to do sketching, and it's not evidence. Okay, so it's an evidence taken out of trust. Okay, I can believe, okay, this person had seen it, he sketched it, I have to believe this person, but that's not a true evidence, right? So photography can be used as an evidence. How do you frame it? I'm like, we can tuck, given photograph. What happens is most of these things happens just randomly. You won't plan for it, you won't wait for it, it just happens. Okay. So you can use photography for storytelling, you can use photography for conservation, you can use it for science, multiple uses. So it's just that you need to know how to frame yours and how to tell it to make it a perfect story, how to get things done in a right way. Okay, so I'll just show you a few photographs that will tell a little story of itself, or I can try and explain. You can also tell me, I'll give you a little time, you tell me what story that photograph is telling. Let's see who gets it right, or how I see it. How many of you see it? Can someone tell me what this image is showing? What story?
Nature,
what?
wildlife,
Okay.
chameleon.
Okay.
The color changing chameleon.
Can you think of something else from the image?
The chameleon is changing colors,
Okay.
I guess, with the sky.
It also satisfies the grid rules.
Sorry?
It satisfies the 3 grid rules.
Okay. No. Let's forget all the rules and compositions that all we saw. Just tell me what story this image is telling you. What do you understand from the story? I'll tell you the story, but
Is it something, some place with, caught some wildfire or something like that?
yeah, exactly. See? So yeah, you don't know this animal, so you don't understand. But for those who know this animal, so this is called a fan-throated lizard. Okay. After the session is over, you can Google fan-throated lizard. So these lizards do have a dewlap called fan-leg dewlap. So they just display that for attracting females. Okay. And they are typical grassland dwelling species. They live only on the grasslands. They don't live anywhere except if you put trees around there, they'll all die. Okay. They live in grasslands. So they need grasslands to strive. So what happened in this grassland is people use this grassland and they also burn it because they want more grasses for grazing. Over time, every year they burn it. So these lizards also live only in grasslands. So when the grasslands are burnt, where do they go? They have nowhere to go. Either they die there and then they escape somewhere and then they come back. So here is also the same thing. This is one of the grasslands which was freshly burnt. You can see all this grass is burnt. It was just burnt like a day before when I was photographing this. Okay, so the lizard is just there. It's his home. It's burnt. Okay, people manage it that way. We don't know if it is good, bad, but the lizard clearly doesn't need it. It doesn't like it because the home of the lizard is burnt now. Okay.
So this can be a perfect example for loss of biodiversity, right?
Yeah, it depends on how you frame it, right? If you want to frame it like that, yes. Okay, this one is what? How many of you know what this monkey is? You wouldn't have seen it in your textbooks, but anyone can tell me a right name for this monkey?
Sir, it is searching for his mother or son.
No, but that is fine. But tell me which monkey is this? Which species of
Like
primate is this?
black.
Black. God.
I'm confused. I know the type of monkey, but I'm not getting its name.
Okay. Fine. So this is called lion-tailed macaque from the Western Ghats. So their tail will be like the lion's tail, the short tail. I don't have an image here to show, but yeah, if you Google lion-tailed macaques, you see. So these macaques are like highly endangered, and they are found in very small locations in the Western Ghats, and they are purely arboreal in nature, which means they only live in trees. They never come to ground. Okay. So in many of the location landscapes where they are found in Western Ghats, they never come to ground. You don't see them in the ground at all. Okay, they live only in the trees and they very rarely come to ground. So this one particular place in the Western Ghats called Anomalies. So one of the very active population, the land of this macaques has been taken, converted into tea estates and all the things. So these macaques lost the habitats and they started coming down. This is the only population in the whole world which lives on the ground. They never come down. Okay. So the linear infrastructure and then the urbanization and all this forest conversion had forced them to come to ground, which is not their habit at all. Okay, they never come to ground anytime. So changes that we introduced made them come to ground, and it also had gone to extent where they now wait for people to feed them. Okay, in the other populations that we see in the Western Ghats, the moment you see them, they run away. They're very shy, they're very elusive, they don't want to see anyone, they're very secretive. Okay, but this particular population, because of the intrusions, because of this conversions and all that, they adapted themselves. Otherwise they'll die. Otherwise they have to go extinct from there, right? So see this this small macaque sitting here is wanting food from that person there. So whenever a bike or a car comes, they'll just go stand there and look for food. Okay. Okay. I hope no one gets scared, but you see this? What do you think of this image?
Sir, the same story. This is the snake's house and it got burned. Something.
Yeah, something like that is what I also thought. Yeah, so this all like a few years ago. This is in Bangalore only. Like in 2015, when I used to be here, the huge buildings that you see behind used to be there. This used to be a lake. This used to be a lake with a lot of snakes and all that. Now the snakes are still there. We don't know how much is left, but the buildings have come. So what used to be once their house is not anymore theirs. Right now, people see it as intrusions. People see them like as dangers and kill them, which used to be theirs once. So here I just wanted to show the urban like biodiversity. Okay. And see this is what I told. So this is one of the examples like that. So this snake is feeding on a multiple things. Okay. This also I had the snake, we had an experiment set up and all that. So we fed the snake with different insects and things no one knew what the snake would eat. Okay, this is part of our study. So we had to feed them different things and photograph everything. Okay, if I don't have a camera, no, I can't do anything. I'll have to record it in notes, but who will believe me? Why should you believe me, right? Early days people did. Now that you have cameras to do, use cameras and use all the photography functions for things like that. These are like very important scientific discoveries. You understand what the species feeds on, their cycle, their food chain and all that. So cameras can be used for that and tell stories, tell their problems. And I'll show you one more very interesting example. So this is a photograph from one of my friends. Can someone tell me what's happening in the image? Anyone? What are those animals there?
Is it a dog and some kind of conflict?
Yes. So there's a group of stray dogs trying to attack a sambar deer, and the sambar deer is scared and jumped into the water. It happened in a dam side, the catchment area. So the sambar deer had jumped inside the water to avoid the dogs, and the dogs are still waiting for the sambar deer to come out. Okay, it's a clear case of wildlife conflict. It's not even a wildlife conflict, it's a wildlife menace, right? So stray dogs are not supposed to do this. So strays are a problem in a biodiversity way. So they're attacking on the native wildlife animals. So you can use your photography, your cameras to tell stories like this. Okay, there are a lot of studies on how strays are affecting the native biodiversity, even especially cats. Now, a lot of countries are studying how cats are destroying native biodiversity. This happens also in India, but what we lack is photos. We don't have anything. We don't have any evidence. We've seen these things. How many of you had seen cats, the cats in your houses killing small insects and geckos and all those small birds and stuffs? How many of you had seen? You think your cats are playing with them, catching them, right? They're not doing that. They're killing all of these. So the problem is we don't have photograph. There is no study in India because there is no enough photograph. No one had photographed it. Rarely people do here and there. So this is how you use your photography like skills for, like wherever it is necessary, you do it. You need not to always tell a problem. So whatever I told you is a problem, right? So this is a problem. The landscape burning is a problem, all that. You need not to do just that. You can just use it for things like this. You can record observations. You can record some very good behavior of an animal. If it's doing some kind of display, if it's doing some kind of dance, a lot of things. We can do good things, bad things, like bad for them things. So a lot of things with photography. So it's just that you need to know how you frame it. Here also, it's a very brilliantly done frame. Okay. So this is taken from a drone. It did not go anywhere. It's taken from a drone, but see the light. You can see the dog, not as the image, but see the shadow, right? It's very nicely done that way. So all these frames that you see, like when you want to tell stories, when you want to report, when you want to write and things about it, it also should be backed by, like, people write very good things, right? These days, what you started doing is when you write, you want to also see what's happening. You want to be there. You want to realize and you want to like experience what you're writing. Like, for example, if someone is writing about a beautiful mountain, you just immediately want to visualize how it looks like. So that is where the photography comes into the play. So you also photograph it and show your readers, right? And just to make it more likable, more lovable, you just follow some of these functions, follow some of these rules. So it looks even more better along with your writings, so that it is liked and then it reaches the larger audience. That's the whole idea of photography. You just want to report something, you want to show something, you want your viewers to enjoy something that you saw, or you want your readers to know or see what you saw, right? So you just frame it in a very nice way, following a little of basic principles, and everyone will like it. So that's the whole idea of photography. Yeah, I think I'm done. If you have any questions, I can give you some time. You can ask questions. No one? No questions? Everyone is tired or super excited? What's happening here? No questions, huh? Any doubts from whatever I was telling? Okay, then Shreyas.
Yeah, I think they all have like completely understood, or they haven't understood at all.
Are they completely out of the head?
Yes. These two are the possibilities. So yeah, thank you, Surya, and thank you all. You all patiently listened to me, and it was quite interactive. The thing is that you can use all this technique to use it as a storytelling to address local and neglected environmental issues. As Surya has given you some examples, like how loss of biodiversity is affecting wild animal. Similarly, how pollution is affecting animal as well as human life. So, you can come up with some beautiful stories through photography, and like that, you can participate in Young Reporters for the Environment, and you can submit your work. So with this, I would like to invite Siddharth to say a few words and launch our photography for YRE. Surya, can you please stop sharing so that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, done.
Just a moment. Siddharth, you can begin. Wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
I'll just share the screen and is it audible, visible now?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay, perfect. So, if possible, can you share something about YRE competition, national competition, and what's photography competition?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. So, I hope the session was really good for you, and you learned so much about photography with this. But YRE has this annual competitions, every year, and we are announcing the photography competition, the annual competition. और ये जो हमारा जो कंपटीशन होगा वो आपके सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स है उनके साथ अलाइन होगा, जैसे कि ये जो 8 गोल्स आपको दिख रहे हैं, इनके साथ ये जो हमारा पूरा कंपटीशन है वो उसके साथ अलाइन होगा. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. So 1 minute. Yeah. Just a minute, sir. I think there's an error. मेरे को slide नहीं दिख रही. सर एक्चुअली मेरे को स्लाइड नहीं दिख रही है. Can't see the screen. Sir, am I audible?
Sir, can you please keep the previous slide once?
Hold up.
Thank you, sir.
Hello everyone, am I audible?
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we were here, like how plastic pollution, how pollution is impacting marine organisms, life on land. You can see this cow, it should be standing on a green patch, right, with lots of fresh grasses. But instead of that, that poor cow is standing, surrounded by lots of plastic. And definitely, the cow will start eating plastic. It will affect its health or also human health. You can see this boy how he must be collecting some of the other item or cleaning the lake, but how polluted it is. Now that will definitely impact his health, physical health, mental health. But why he is doing that? Because he's a poor person, right? So how pollution, specifically pollution, whether it can be a water pollution, land pollution, how pollution is impacting life on water, land, as well as poor people or poverty, how it is impacting. So that has to be your theme. You have to look into such matter and capture images. So these are the few submission criteria. When you are submitting your photographs, the name of the author should be there, because what we expect from you is that we need an original photo from you. Age of the author, name of the registered school or a group, country of residence. That would be definitely India. Also, from which state you belong. Fulfill the format and the structure and dissemination criteria for the category. So these are the category criteria, name, age, and everything. And you have to disseminate your work, photo to your social media. You can also publish it in magazine, newspaper, school newsletter, and everything. Be in a written or spoken. If you are writing a caption for the photo, it should be in English, because we will be submitting your photography to the international level, and focus on a real and current local issue with link of global context. So, as I said earlier, the photograph should be of local and current issues. Even if you look around you, your residence, your school, you may find many neglected issues. There might be a pile of garbage near your house, so, and there must be a river very near to your school or residence, which is very much polluted. So like that, it should be a local and current issues, present possible and constructive solution supported with a credible source. Only it has to be a negative photograph showing a very, how pollution is impacted. It can also be a positive image, right? Any action image, like a group of a student is cleaning up the river. So you can capture that image, because that is a very positive action, right? You are giving a constructive solution for that particular issue. So it can be a collage, it can be a photo story comprising of 4 to 5 images, where in first image you are showing what all issues are there. Okay, if there is a pollution around them. And second image, you can show the impact created by that particular pollution. Third, who are impacted? Human, water animal, land animal, and all. And again, the fourth image can be about the solution. Action photo. A group of students visited that place. They have done necessary cleanup drive and everything. You can capture that in the photo. And fourth image can be the after photo, after the positive action. took place. And you also have to include the credit role if the photo is clicked by someone else. No, someone else from the group, but the other student is using that photo for his video or article writing. It should be, I mean, they have to mention their name. And lastly, identify and provide brief explanation on how submission is related to one or more sustainable development goal. So in first slide, Siddharth has shown that by working around these three themes, you can fulfill how many. I'll go to the first slide. So if you are working on these three themes, how pollution is impacting on life on land, how pollution is impacting life below water, and how pollution and poverty is been related, you will fulfilling these 8 SDG goal, which is quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, decent work and economic growth, reduced inequality, responsible consumption and production, life below water as well as life on land. So these are the three themes for YRE photography competition, and the last date for the submission would be 15th of February. So that's all. If you have any doubt, you can ask. We still have 15 minutes. Anyone having any sort of doubt about how to submit photography and any doubt related to themes of photography, anything? Okay, so
how to do the photography when these are not like in range of us?
Okay, so see, there would be some or the other situation where you can capture such image. But if, as I said, it's not that, there should be a pollution or there should be something related to. You can also give us for positive photography, like okay, there was a pollution earlier, so there was a pile of garbage nearby, but now they have done some positive action. Now the scenario is different. You can share positive photos also. Okay, you can make your own group of students and take interviews of nearby people and ask them if they are facing some of the other problem from pollution, right? Whether it can be a land pollution, water pollution. So you can capture such image. Okay.
Okay, sir. Where should we post it?
Yeah, so I have already shared links, submission link to the respected schools and teachers, and also I'll share that link with all students.
Okay, okay, sir.
Anything else?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you. So thank you all for attending today's workshop. I hope you must have learned something. Try to apply that and make it more interesting. Just try to make good photo stories, and we will definitely publish all the good stories in our national journal as well as international. We'll submit it into the international YRE global team as well. So they will also publish it. So, but just make sure it has to be very good, touching stories. Okay, with some real meaning, with a local issue, and it also should fulfill the sustainable development goals. Okay. So with this, thank you all. You all can leave now. So we'll end the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.